Hi there and welcome. My name is Steve Jensen and I'm from the National Sales Academy and Impact Training Corporation. I'd love to welcome you today to our mini-series called the Golden Nuggets. Over the course of the mini-series, what we're going to be doing is showing you some of the really great little things that you can take back to your business that you can implement almost straight away. And one of the first things that I get asked all the time in every company, any small or large workshop that I do, is, Steve, could you show us how to close more sales? So what I want to do today is to work with you in some of the processes which will help you become let's say a super closer. All right? So over the next short period of time, let's throw some great golden nuggets your way, and I hope you put them into practice. Okay, so hold on to your hat and let's go forward. Now, the first thing we have to understand if we're going to become a super closer, there are 8 steps to the selling cycle. Now, these mini workshops is not the forum to be able to go through all the different strategies within that cycle, but let me tell you, between initial contact and right through to the tour or explanation or demonstration of your product, you have to be preparing to close. In other words, you are closing right from the very beginning. The best closers in the world know as soon as you have that initial contact, in that first 2 to 5 seconds, you're going to be starting to close. When the person likes and trusts you all the way through the selling zone, and you're finding compelling reason to buy, and I just want you to write that down, you have to find a compelling reason to buy, you'll actually be closing at that point. By the time you show your tour or explain your product or demonstrate or whatever you do to give them an experience, the person should buy when you show them the experience, because it has to be a solution to what you found out through qualification. And then you can become a super closer. Now, if you want to be able to find out compelling reason, what you need to do is to find out the logical and the emotional reasons the person wants to buy. Now, if the person wants to buy something, they are usually emotionally motivated. However, there are always logical reasons. Now, let me just explain a little bit about the logic and emotion. And if you understand there is a red brain and a green brain, the red brain is for the logical conversation. That's what we call it anyway. Red brain was created to go into logical conversation, which means they go into a thing called reason. Now, when someone starts to go into reason, they need to process things, which means the decisions slow down. When you talk about your products or your price or the saving and the deal and the location and all those sorts of words which throw out a logical conversation, it actually is creating objections in the person's mind or a reason to ask you questions that maybe become an objection at the end. People buy emotionally and back up the purchase logically. So if we understand that the green brain, which is the emotional component, that's what we call the emotional part of the buying decision, is where the person speeds up the decision-making process. They get excited, they like and trust you from the beginning, and it becomes easy. Have you ever had a time when it becomes easy to buy? That's because you're in the logical brain. You have to have it, you want it, and you're going to take it on board, and you're going to make that purchase. And that means that you become a buyer and you're not being sold to. Understanding the difference between logic and emotion, or green or red brain, makes an enormous difference to your closing. Now, if you understand this process, the brain cannot think of 2 things at once. It cannot think of green and red stuff at the same time. So there's no purple brain. So if I'm talking to you in an emotional context, then guess what? The person is going to be getting into a faster buying cycle. Let me rest assure you, you must make sure that you do everything slowly. Get permission to go to the next point of the sale. Most salespeople just say, "Hi, how you going, John? Great. What do you want? Here's a great product. Here's the price. Here's the deal." That's the old way of selling. Have you noticed it's become harder to close? Closing processes should be a foregone conclusion because the person wants to buy. It shouldn't be hard at the end. If it's a big fat back end of your presentation, which means you're focusing just on closing, you're probably going to come unstuck. Now, there are 2 motivators in human behavior. Understanding this, which really makes a huge difference to closing, means that you will more than likely have success. The 2 motivators are avoiding pain and movement towards pleasure. Now, if you want to analyze this a little bit, the number 1 motivator in human behavior is to avoid pain. So once I found out all of the fantastic things about you and who you are, and then I've got permission then to ask great questions to find out what your pain is now or possible pain in the future, and if your product is a solution to their challenge, guess what? You'll more than likely have a purchase. If the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of actually doing the transaction with you, then you'll more than likely have the opportunity for the person to buy. So we use a process called the 4 W's plus H. This is a great golden nugget to take away. It's a very, very easy way of creating compelling reason to buy. I'll repeat that, compelling reason to buy, which means I must have it. Now put this into your context, obviously, but the 4 W's plus H goes something like this. We need to have specific dialogue to make sure that the person tells you the truth. Gone are the days when we can have non-specific dialogue. So your job throughout the whole presentation is to become highly specific. Now just remember that. That's a real big golden nugget. Next thing is, we need to understand that the person is coming to you for help. If they are a prospect and they've sought you out, let's face it, they've actually have a challenge. You've just got to find out what they want, give them what they want, and then they'll buy it. If the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of paying the money, then guess what? You more than likely have a purchase. Please remember that. That makes a big difference in closing. Now let's go through into the 4 W's plus H, because this is just a mini workshop and I want to make sure we give as much to you as we possibly can. The 4 W's plus H goes something like this. It's what is their number one priority as far as using your product or service is concerned. I do suggest in some products and services we might find out the second and third priority and talk about those too. This is a conversation. Next part of it, you now to ask this question with empathy. Hey Steve, or Bob, or whoever it may be, where are maybe 2 or 3 areas that will affect by not having this challenge or this little maybe inconvenience not dealt with? Let's find that out and find out a little bit more about that. Ask good questions. Next bit, well, why is that happening now? It wasn't happening before, John. Or why are you feeling like that now and you weren't feeling like that, say, 3 or 4 months ago? In other words, what changed your mind and made you seek me out? Get this information. Now, here's the big one. Find out the when. The when is actually a hook. Once you find out a date, it creates an enormous momentum to buying. Have you ever had a situation when you've come to the end of the month and you must make a decision, or you're in a shop, there's only one to go, and there's only one day to go in the presentation of all the products and services, and guess what? You've got to make that decision then and there. Well, that's where a time frame or a date does come in handy. Please get specific here. If you find out the when, this is called the hook, because time and the shortage of time is one of the biggest closing mechanisms you can have. So make sure that you isolate that time. Now the last thing I want to cover in this little quick workshop is this is where you create all the momentum. Now remember, the number one motivator in human behavior is to avoid pain and then instantly go towards having some pleasure. So once you've established an enormous amount of rapport, you can ask the questions, what, where, why, I notice you want to fix it by then, what's happening there? Great. So you want A, B, and C product. Here it is. So John, I'm just curious. I just want to put this into perspective. How would you feel if you did nothing in the next 2 to 3 months and you were in the same position as you are in now? In other words, if say it was a financial planner. So I'm just curious, how would you feel if say in the next 6 months you're still in the same position with your debt and the investments you are in now, Bob? Bob's going to say, oh, that would be awful. Look, don't worry. By using A, solution B, solution C, you'll be going to be well on the way. And then you need to ask this question. Are you excited about those changes? Now, this is all a conversation and this is just a mini workshop. So please understand, this needs to be done in a conversational way. One other thing. There is another way of doing the how. This is called the positive, negative, positive. Is once you've established the date, okay, when did you want to have this fixed by? Okay, I understand, that date is coming up soon. Okay, well, how good would you feel when the thing is fixed, whatever their challenge is? Oh, okay, let me just put it into perspective again. How do you feel in comparison if you did nothing in the next 3 to 4 months and you're in the same position as you are in now? Now, whatever the position is could be the challenge that they've talked to you about. And it's completely up to you to tailor that. Once they've told you that, you're then going to rescue them. You say, well, don't worry. By using product or service or opportunity that you're going to present to them, you're going to be well on the way. And ask the question after you've done that, are you excited about those changes? And people buy enthusiasm And I'm not talking about being a lunatic, but I'm talking about being really excited about their possibility. Okay, so this is the end of Golden Nugget number 1. As we go through these little mini-series, I'll give you lots more. So I can't wait to play with you again. So catch up with Super Closer Part 2 coming up shortly. Bye for now.